Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Kerrville City Council. This is Tuesday, April the 24th, 2018 at 6 p.m. We will begin the meeting by asking you to please turn your cell phones off if you would. And we will start with the invocation led by Mary Ellen Summerlin, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chief Smith. You can stand if you wish.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this lovely little city. We thank you for all the good citizens in it who continue to make it better, improving it every day. We pray for Kerrville to be peaceful and prosperous, and we need a little more rain. We thank you for the opportunity to serve your citizens, your people, as members of the City Council. We pray your help to serve with integrity and dedication to the best interests of all the citizens. We thank you especially tonight that we live in a nation of freedom and democracy. We thank you for the election that's ongoing. We pray that you'll be with every one of us, that we may act with tolerance, mutual forbearance, respect for every person, and finally humility, knowing that it's not any of us who will bring the kingdom of God, but only you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 1 is announcements of community interest. Stuart.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We've got a big crowd here tonight. It's the first time I've used this one, so this is kind of fun. Big turnout for this April 24th meeting up higher. Okay. April 24th, I just want to say on a personal note, my parents were married 66 years ago right now in Tyler,
wow.
Texas.
Wow.
And thanks.
Good for you.
Stuart.
Yes.
You're the best they could do.
Yeah. Well, they had 2 other tries, too.
Okay.
My dad shipped out for Korea a week later, and my poor mother said that first year of marriage was absolutely wonderful. And then the war ended. So, all right, let's begin the announcements. First thing, early voting. How many people in here have already voted? Well, that's great. We had early voting began yesterday. Today was the second day. And City Secretary Brenda Craig over there put some numbers together. We had 590 people who voted at the ballot yesterday, and another 424 by mail. So on the very first day, we had 1,014 early voters, and that's a terrific turnout. Just want to say thanks to those of you who haven't voted. Please go out and do so. Don't ever take that right to vote for granted. That's been won by a lot of people over the years. Okay, Kerrville is a free city as of yesterday. We passed the ordinance a couple of weeks ago, but it actually went into effect on Monday, April 23rd. It's a new city ordinance that prohibits the use of all electronic handheld devices while operating a motor vehicle or bicycle within the city limits. And to avoid fines of up to $500, put your phone away or consider using a hands-free system such as Bluetooth or headphones or an fixed GPS system. The law, as I said, the law went into effect yesterday, but there's a 90-day grace period, so tickets, if you get caught before then, you get a warning, but after July 22nd, they'll begin writing tickets.
Stuart,
Yes.
Where are we on the signs?
We are working on the signs. Hopefully they will be out at the city limits within the next week or so. Okay, the Kerrville Water Reuse Storage Facility. We're going to have a contest to name something better than that. It goes on for a while. But we turned the faucet on, I guess you could put it that way, the other day, last Friday. The Water Reuse Storage Facility was constructed to help increase the city's storage capacity of effluent, which is treated wastewater. And I'm sure you can tell by the size of that complex there that will be an awful lot of water. This stored water, raw water, will be available for sale for irrigation and non-potable uses. It also assists the community in being drought prepared. It can hold up to 95 million gallons of reclaimed water. And customers who will use it, and some of these are already using it from what I just understood from Stuart Barron, Tybee High School, Kirk County Animal Shelter, Schreiner University, Scott Schreiner Golf Course, River Hill Country Club, Comanche Trace Residential Center, and the Kerrville Sports Complex. And construction on it began last June, and we hope to begin pumping all the water out of it, not all the water, obviously, but pumping out this June. So it's really come a long way. It was a fun event the other day. We had all the engineers and city staff out there. You can see right there on that top right, that's where the water comes in, and we did not know when they turned it on how much was going to come in, whether it would be a trickle or a torrent. And so there was a lot of daring. You stand in front of it, I dare you to stand in front of it. Nobody called Brenda to stand in front of it because we knew she would do it.
I did it on Monday.
Did you? Okay.
We know about daring Brenda, right?
Right, do not dare Brenda to do something. Okay, we had 2 open houses last week on Thursday and Friday. Kerrville citizens got 2 more opportunities to review and comment on the Kerrville 2050 Comprehensive Plan's new future land use plan and thoroughfare plan. And open houses that were held here Thursday and Friday night. And they did comment. We had, I don't know how many comments we had, quite a few, pages and pages. City employees and representatives from the consulting firm Kimley Horn were on hand. They answered all the questions. They took notes on the citizens' input. And Kimley Horn and the staff are reviewing those comments, and we'll have another meeting about that with the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee May 7th at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. On tap for this weekend, if there's anybody who wants to dispose of any medicine, drugs that you have, you can do that Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Kerrville Police Department, 429 Sidney Baker Street. They do this once a year, twice a year? Twice a year, yeah. Always a great thing and a good chance to clean out your cabinet with old stuff that you want to get rid of. And if you don't have something to do Friday night, you're looking for some fun, we have Kerrville Police Chief David over here. David, where's my Heisman Knight? And Kerrville Fire Chief Danny, I have watched the Super Bowl Smith. And they will be leading their respective teams in the Guns and Hoses flag football showdown between the police and fire department. That's going to be at Antler Stadium. It begins at 6:30, and we're asking for a minimum $3 entry donation, which will go to help the Hill Country Crisis Center, so it's a very good deal. I think that's it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Stuart. I have one announcement. Sandra Bustamante is with us this evening, and she didn't make it to the KPUB meeting to get her award, but she was recipient of the KPUB award. The meeting was last week, and we hope you'll be able to come back. But she is a scholarship recipient, so congratulations. Let's give her a round of applause. Any other announcements? Council? Okay. Item number 2 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. I don't see it on here, but Mr. Stoudemire?
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor White and members of the City Council. And ladies and gentlemen, my name is Steve Stoudemire. I'm a resident of Kerr County since retiring in 2007 and escaping from Houston. I'd like to get placed on the formal agenda for a future meeting, preferably the May 8th meeting, to discuss with the council, I think, some very interesting and informative information as regards a portion of your Kerrville 2050 development plan, and particularly a short road segment that's planned to be built. I'm a Texas archaeology steward for the Texas Historical Commission, and there's some significant archaeological impacts to consider. So I'd like to arm you with that information at that date if possible.
Okay, we made a note of that. Thank you very much. Any other requests from citizens? Bruce Strakey? I don't see it, but you're...
Bruce Strakey, 615 Earl Garrett. I just came back
this evening to talk about something great that's going on in Kerrville. This past week last month, we started the rekindling of the Kerrville Downtown Business Alliance. And this week we had a meeting with our city manager, Mark McDaniels, that was it well attended? Mm-hmm. It was very well attended. I was impressed with how many of the downtown business folks came out and how excited they are about downtown. And so I just wanted to come down. We've got new buttons, we've got new stickers. Love Downtown Kerrville, DTK. There's a new website, downtownkerrville.com, that'll go live in the next few days. It's been done by the association. We have money in the bank. We don't have a lot of money, but we have some money in the bank, and there is a lot of excitement. And that started some years ago, and you all have continued that, and I hope to see it continue on as it goes, because downtown is the place to be in Kerrville. And I hired a new apprentice in the office about 2 weeks ago, and I took her to lunch the other day, and we walked around some of the shops downtown Kerrville. We went to the Sunrise Antique Mall. We went to the new Ferry Emporium. We went to a lot of different shops, Wolf Mueller's, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But we went. She was surprised at how much there is in downtown Kerrville to do, and how easy it was to park and walk around and enjoy downtown and lunch and shop. And it's a great place to be. And I want to thank everybody here and you all for all that you do to make this a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? If not, then we will move to items number 3A and 3B. I'd like to take those together. Ms. Kayne and Mr. Munson, if you're here, you could join me in the front, please. I'm going to read these together. If you two don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and hand them to you. Hand yours anyway. I've got to read yours. Is that all right? I'll hand it to you in a moment. Okay, this is a resolution of commendation to Jay Munson and Jacklyn Kayne, who have served as members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a date of service beginning for both March the 11th, 2014. Am I correct? And so whereas these two have served faithfully and dutifully on the Parks Board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that Jay Munson and Jacklyn Kayne be recognized for outstanding service as members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville, as well as for ourselves individually on council, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and to the community. Passed and approved this 24th day of April 2018. And I must say, I met this lady. You weren't with her at the market days, but you were probably working on the parks. But you've had a lot of hats that you've worn, and I know both of you have served well. And we're getting ready to embark on some new projects, so y'all have to come back and visit.
We will. Not going anywhere.
Okay, there you are. Congratulations.
Well, I will just say that for the last 4 years, I just would really like to let the citizens of Kerrville know that Ashley and the whole Parks and Rec department, from the top to the bottom, they're hardworking, conscientious, very impressed with that department. And so rest assured, you're in good hands with these folks over here. Okay?
Very good. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Item number 3C is a certificate of recognition for Bailey and Keely Giesel for their generous donation, and I'm going to ask Ashley and them to join us.
Oh, it would be that we tried to put it through the drive-through.
To the drive-through. Okay, so this is a certificate of recognition presented to Bailey and Keely Giesel. I say that right? Geisel, you see. This certificate of recognition is being presented to these girls, 2 citizens of the city of Kerrville, Texas. They were recognized for their generous donation of $795, specifically for a new adaptive swing, which has been installed by the Kerrville Parks and Recreation Department at Lehman and Monroe Park in Kerrville, Texas. These 2 girls are Girl Scouts and have loyally devoted an exceptional amount of work and time into raising money for the adaptive swing. The adaptive swing is an inclusive amenity for Lehman and Monroe Park and will help ensure that everyone can experience the joy of swinging. The city of Kerrville commend these 2 citizens for their dedication, selflessness, and service to the community. So we want to recognize you for your forethought. I asked your mother this evening what inspired this, and she said, I believe you have a friend who's in a wheelchair, is that correct? And you just wanted him and everyone else to be able to enjoy the park system. Let's give these great girls a hand.
I bet we'd all like to shake your hands, girls. I was a Girl Scout. I'm proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 3D is to recognize the Museum of Western Art, and we'll read about why in just a moment. Stephanie here, a representative from the Western Art Museum? Ah, if not, then let me just say that they will be celebrating this week the Museum of Western Art's 35th anniversary. And we encourage all of you to keep up with what they're doing over there. They have projects, they have free student days, they have crafts, they have an on-site sculptor, and many, many other. They have a collection that includes 150 sculptures and 250 paintings. 85% of the museum collection is composed of art produced by artists who were members of the prestigious Cowboy Artists of America. So we will be presenting this to them, and join them, I believe, this Friday. They're going to have their official recognition day, so we'll get this to them. Item number 3E is a proclamation declaring the month of May as Williams Syndrome Awareness Day. I'm going to ask Laura Walters to join us as a recipient of this. She's been with us before. Some of you may recognize her, once or twice before, Laura?
Oh, it's been like 3 or 4 times.
Well, see, I hadn't been on that long. Okay. This is a proclamation. Whereas Williams syndrome is a rare genetic developmental disorder that is present at birth and affects many parts of the body, and whereas the Williams syndrome occurs randomly in about 1 in 10,000 births, is characterized by medical and cognitive problems, whereas the Williams Syndrome Association was founded in 1982 and is a nonprofit organization that provides comprehensive resources for people and families living with Williams syndrome, as well as doctors, researchers, and educators. And whereas through its efforts to raise public awareness, fund critical new research, and share valuable information and support families, the WSA has improved the quality of life and futures of those affected by Williams syndrome. And whereas the Williams Syndrome Association, as well as the families and friends of those with the disease, should be commended for their hard work, their compassion, and their commitment to educating our communities about this rare disorder. So now, therefore, I, Bonnie White, Mayor of the City of Kerrville, do hereby proclaim the month of May as the Williams Syndrome Awareness Month. And Laura has with her this evening to join her, her mother, and her sister from Michigan, and
My husband.
your husband.
And a very good friend of mine, Jason Johnson.
Would you like to say just a word?
Yeah, Mark, will you please come up here for a minute? Thank you, Mayor, for this honor, and thank you for letting me come and speak about Williams syndrome and the importance of it. I have had Williams syndrome all my life. I'm 54. I'll be 55 in November. There are 1 out of 10,000 births. There's 30,000 of us in the United States alone, not including around the world. There is There's many of us who have different needs. It causes mental delay. I mean, not mental delay, I'm sorry. Mental disability. And also it causes a lot of other health problems. This year I'm going to Baltimore for a conference. There will be a conference. The conference will be from July the 11th through the 14th. If it would be okay with you, Mayor, if there are businesses here, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, you can say that they're taking donations for this trip for the recognition of Williams syndrome.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, item number 3F is a proclamation proclaiming April the 30th as Tina Woods Day. Tina, thank you for joining us, and whomever you would like to join you. Oh my goodness, this is
Yes,
Is that any question for a former beauty queen? Tina, we just want to say preliminary to this that we appreciate everything you've done. The last couple of years, I joined and some of the other council members I know for Meals on Wheels Day, and we saw the wonderful work there, and been for several other events that you've had. Oh my goodness, too many to mention. And I know you're going to have an official celebration there at the Dietert Center, but I just wanted to say how much we personally appreciated each one of us before I read this. You've been tireless. And when I asked for some information from Bob Ogle to prepare this proclamation, we got a book. We got a small book because there's so much to say. We probably won't say it all, but you can display this in your office. So whereas from 91 to 2002, Tina Woods worked as a director of patient community relations and volunteer services at Peterson Regional Medical Center, and in 2002 joined the Dietert Center as the executive director. In her 16 years as executive director, she has led the Dietert Center's growth from 6 aging buildings on Jefferson Street to the current 23,000 square foot center on 9 acres. She led a 3-year capital campaign to raise $4 million for the project, which was debt-free upon completion. We all need you to help us in our personal lives, Tina. So she supervises a staff of 21 and over 300 volunteers. Primarily Meals on Wheels is what that is known for, but many other programs as well. She's been a driving force in evolving the Dietert Center into a volunteer-driven, community-based organization that helps men and women remain active and independent in their senior years. It is the only nonprofit organization in Kirk County dedicated exclusively to helping older adults. It is also the administrative center for a variety of professional support programs designed to help seniors remain independent in their homes for as long as possible. So without reading the rest of this as you requested, Tina, I'm going to say whereas for all you have done, it is with sincere appreciation that the city of Kerrville recognize Tina Woods for her 27 years of dedicated service to our community, and I, Bonnie White, Mayor of the City of Kerrville, do hereby announce and proclaim April the 30th, 2018, as Tina Woods Day. Please join me in thanking her.
White. I just want to thank City Council and all the city staff. You all have been wonderful partners with us for the last 16 years, and I really appreciate your help in helping us take care of the older people in our community. I'm very humbled by this award. I do not like to be the center of attention. That won't surprise some people who know me well. But mostly because the work that we do is bigger than one person. You know, one person can't do this. I have a fabulous staff. I've got a great board of directors. Y'all raise your hands. There's a lot of folks here from the Dietert Center tonight. Amazing volunteers, and some of the most generous donors that anybody could wish for. So it has been a privilege to serve. I'm proud of what we have all done for the Dietert Center for the past 16 years, and even at the hospital when I was there. It's very humbling to receive this, but I appreciate it very much. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
That is community service in its truest sense right there. All of you that are here and contribute to that. So now we're at item number 4A, which is a consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Well, before that,
Oh, I'm sorry.
may I just ask something? Greg Schrader also rotated off the Parks Board, and I noticed we signed his proclamation, but it wasn't presented. Is that to come, or?
And she missed that? And
On the next agenda?
Right.
Okay.
they sent a notice
Just wanted
around.
to name his name
Oh,
as
that's
another
fine.
faithful member.
Yes,
Good.
he sure will. Okay.
And then I'll be glad to move the approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Oops, somebody else did.
I second.
We have a motion. And a second. Cast your votes, please.
Kick me out.
Kicked you out.
Yeah.
And motion carries 5-0. Item number 5A is resolution number 13-20818, requesting financial assistance from the Texas Water Development Board to finance certain improvements to the city's water system, authorizing the filing of an application for financial assistance and making certain findings in connection therewith. Mr. Hoppy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll see an item on your agenda tonight, very similar to what you reviewed at your meeting 2 weeks ago, but for a little bit different project. We are again seeking support from the City Council to go forward with an application to the Texas Water Development Board for funding of a water project. As you recall, the last time was a resolution of support for the wastewater project known as Legion Lift Station. This is for the TTHM mitigation project. It is, as we made you all aware, we've been going through the engineering process to reduce the level of total trihalomethanes, which we abbreviate there as TTHM, within our water system. That is a requirement by TCEQ. The overall project includes both the feasibility study as well as benchtop testing and design and construction for this new treatment process, which will be an add-on to the existing water treatment facility. Initial construction cost estimates are at $4.1 million. We are at 30% engineering, moving very quickly towards 60% engineering. Just a quick recap. Again, the Texas Water Development Board loan is a low-cost loan that's available to cities in the state of Texas for water and wastewater infrastructure projects. This does utilize the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. It's a 30-year term, essentially based off of market rates for certificates of obligation. The state reduces that rate by 1.35% off of market, but there is a 2.15% origination fee as part of that. There are also some additional requirements related to federal environmental regulations, Davis-Bacon wage rates, and American iron and steel requirements. So with the help of our finance department and our bond counsel, we've gone through and done just a brief pro forma analysis based off of our current construction estimates of $4.1 million and those terms. Essentially, that 1.35% reduction alleviates about close to $1 million in interest rates over the course of that 30-year time span. Again, there are some additional requirements, though, and so when you balance those out, we estimate that it's overall about $800,000 in savings for the community for the life of the loan. So that's why we're here tonight, to seek your support in looking at that that resolution to support that. Again, this is a debt capacity analysis. This is very similar to what we presented to you 2 weeks ago. You'll see that the first column was the Legion Lift Station, which we talked about at that time. And the second column is the TTHM project, which we estimate will be around $175,000 in debt service on an annual basis over that course of that 30 years. Again, this analysis does anticipate an increase to the water and sewer rates over the next 2 years. Project calendar, we are again in the design phase. We are hopeful to have that design complete by the July timeframe this summer. We are in the process of submitting the preliminary application. With your approval tonight, we will go ahead and complete that application. That will be reviewed over the summer months. They'll go through the actual engineering and specification review as well during that same time frame, and then be looking to bid the project towards the end of the year and start construction next spring. So this is item 5A. There's an additional item that's on your agenda, and I'll go ahead and brief you on it now, unless you had any specific questions on that one. But essentially, there's a reimbursement resolution also on your agenda. All that reimbursement resolution is it's required if the city desires to be reimbursed for any of the costs, such as engineering or other elements that we've already incurred. There's a slight nuance to that in that, many communities will apply for these funds well in advance, at the conceptual stage, before they've even done engineering. We're far in advance in the process and applying at that stage, so it really just allows the city to reimburse ourselves with these loans should we choose to do so. But it is a separate resolution. We've gone through both of these with our bond counsel, our city attorney's office, as well as our engineering consultants and our finance department, and they helped us draft all of these resolutions, and we're ready to go should you approve to do so. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I got a couple. The reimbursement aspect of it, it said in there that it was for Legion and the TTHM.
Yes.
So how much, in a perfect world, have we accumulated that we would hope to get reimbursed?
So on the Legion aspect, there's about $734,000 worth of engineering costs that we think could be reimbursed. It's a little bit different. It's a term they call equivalency and non-equivalency. In relation to the TTHM project, it is an equivalency project, and so we can't get reimbursed for the engineering, but there may be some, the benchtop study and some other things that we think may be applicable. So we went ahead and put that in there to go ahead and be authorized for it if it is applicable.
How did we pay for them? Like the engineering for Legion, how was that already paid?
Yes, sir. Those have been through cash funds, through the water and sewer fund.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then the other is putting them together with the funding that we've been requesting for really essentially two projects here. You got the water board and you got some EIC. What's the total expense of the two projects, and how much are we actually going to apply for?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
In the resolution.
Yes, sir. So overall, the Legion project was at currently estimated at 9.85. We're hoping that will come down. Again, we're at about 60% engineering in that, so it's still a little bit conservative, we think, in the estimate. We won't know until we actually get bids, but right now that's the estimate on that one. Again, this one is at 4.1. They do request that because if for whatever reason, the project did go over, or the bids came in over, we would have to go through the entirety of the application process again if we wanted to ask for over the estimated amount. And so we went ahead and put $5 million just to give some buffer there, but our current estimates are at $4.1 million, and we're actually hoping that reduces as we get further along in the engineering process.
I guess my question would be, of the two resolutions, the one is for specifically 5 and the other is 15. So we're duplicating, right? Because the total is 15. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It just references the 15 are the totals from those two projects, and that's really for the reimbursement aspect. It's only simply asked for any of the funding that we've thus far incurred.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was my only. Any other questions by council? I don't see any speakers on this, so I would entertain a motion on resolution first, number 13-2018. That's item 5A.
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a second. And motion carries 5-0. Since we've already had the briefing on this, if there's no further questions on item 5B, I will ask for a motion on resolution number 14-2018.
I'll make a motion.
With a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Please cast your votes.
By the way, my motion is to pass it.
To approve.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Okay.
Oh.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Hoppy.
Thank you.
Item number 5C is to authorize the execution of a construction contract with Viking Construction. Mr. Burrow, were you going to hold this, or are you going to talk into the mic?
I'll go into this one if you want me to.
Okay. Martin suggested it. That's fine.
Okay, so this is the next phase. In the previous council meeting, we discussed the next phase was Singing Wind and then the slurry seal. So this is the year 3 slurry seal component only. The crack seal we'll bring to you later on. There's about 42 to 44 street segments in this. And to answer your question from last time, I was prepared for this one. This is approximately 10.5 lane miles. So this award is for Viking Construction and the amount of $300,393.90. Again, this is for the year 3 slurry seal construction only. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
So if it is awarded, it will begin.
We just told them they had to be done this fiscal year. They don't take long. They take 3 to 5 days, depending on weather. If they're available, we're going to try to get them in here as quick as possible.
Okay, we have a list of streets. Will that be available online if anybody has questions?
Yes, the street maintenance, whole maintenance plan will be updated, and this will all be, basically we'll change this to awarded after tonight or however the motion goes.
Okay, and I think, council, we had, Mr. McDaniel and I were looking at this before. I think the budget was like about 488, so this is, looks like it's under what we anticipated in the project, and probably possibly could be finished by October. So, any questions? All right, I will look for a motion on item number 5C.
Move.
To
Approval.
Okay, second. For the motion, we have a second. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Kyle. Item number 6A is budget and economic update for the month ended March 31st. Ms. Dozier.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to go through our budget and economic update for the month, and I have a PowerPoint presentation that hopefully y'all can see on your screens there. I'm going to start with the general fund. And I'd like to focus on year-to-date numbers rather than just the month, because I think that gives us better information. So I'm going to be going through some year-to-date numbers, and that's fiscal year-to-date. So on a fiscal year-to-date basis, our revenues exceed our expenditures by $4.6 million. That's a common occurrence at this time of the year because we get so much property tax, in the December-January time frame. So that that will go down over the coming months as we continue to see lower and lower property tax revenues. Let's see, I'd like to show y'all a few things on these graphs here. All right. Okay, so on the left-hand side we have general fund revenues, and I have them compared. The first stack here shows actual year-to-date for 2018, and then in the middle we see the budget for 2018 year-to-date, and then over on the right-hand side is 2017 year-to-date. So a few things to note. I'm going to start with property tax and work my way up. So property tax is our largest revenue source. And you can see that we are a little bit below what we were forecasting for budget. I'm feeling okay about that, though, because we did, if you'll remember, switch to Kerr County as our property tax collector last year, and it was about March of last year when we switched. Kerr County offers a semi-annual pay plan that the school district, our previous collector, did not offer. And that semi-annual plan is available to anyone. You don't have to be a senior citizen to take advantage of it. And so we are expecting to see a bump in our property tax revenue in June, and that's when that second semi-annual payment is due.
I was just curious about that. I didn't know that, we didn't discuss that, I don't think, when we made the decision to switch, I mean, which is fine, but
It
I
is
don't
some,
remember that.
yeah, it is something that they offer to anyone that, you know, they're
Yes.
collecting property taxes for, that semi-annual plan. And we did have quite a few people when we had switched to the school district, you know, request that, but the school district didn't offer it. So, so I think we do have some happy customers, you know, being able to use that semi-annual plan. But our budget projection is based on historicals, so, you know, last year our historicals are going to be a little different than this year. But moving up to sales tax, that's the one that I'm more concerned about. So our sales tax is down just a little bit compared to fiscal year 17 and is has not made budget. So basically, for fiscal year 18, we were looking at our actual 17 numbers and projecting a 3.6% increase. We have not seen that 3.6% increase. Instead, we're 0.3, basically flat with the prior year. I have some additional slides that we'll get into a little bit more detail, but that's the one that I'm more concerned about, and we're looking at a potential like $200,000 shortfall for the year with that property tax. I mean, with that sales tax, excuse me. And then moving up, I'm going to talk about the all other revenue. I have some additional slides for that as well, but one thing to note when you're looking at these graphs is that 2017 number on both the revenue and the expenditure side had a $2 million transfer related to capital projects. It was a transfer in and a transfer out, so you see it on both the revenue and the expense. And that did not recur in 2018, so that's kind of skews the year-to-date comparisons a little bit. Let's see. All right, let's move on to the next slide, where we're going to talk about sales tax in a little bit more depth. So we have a chart here that looks at sales tax by category. I think it's interesting to note that retail is by far our largest category. The dark blue bar is fiscal year 18, and the lighter blue bar shows fiscal year 17. So you can see that actually for the year-to-date, retail is up a little bit compared to last year. So that's good, up 1.2%. It's not good because we were budgeting 3.6%, but at least we are up a little bit on the retail side. The next category that is our largest, our second place category, is accommodation and food services. You can see that's also up slightly. And then the third one down is our manufacturing category, which the two largest businesses in this manufacturing category are James Avery and Fox Tank. And there's been real healthy growth there, up 10.5% year over year. And then we talked about this briefly last month, but you can see these bottom three categories here: other services, constructions, and administrative and waste management. Those three categories all have seen decreases in fiscal year 18, and those three categories all contain a lot of businesses that are in the business of repairing hail damage to cars, roofs, houses, that kind of thing. So that's the difference there. Let's see. And so basically that $200,000 that I'm coming up with as our possible miss for the year, that's assuming that we're going to see a little bit of increase in these last few months, about a 1.5% increase year over year. So we're hoping that that will work out, but sales tax is very volatile, and you know, you can definitely see that here. Last year we had a very good year in sales tax the last couple of years. This year things are a little bit different. We're taking this into account as we're working on our fiscal year 19 budget. With sales tax, you know, the history and recent history is definitely one of the large drivers of our forecast. So we're looking at what does that mean for 19, and then what does that mean going forward? Will we be able to maintain our 25% reserve fund balance? That's our goal, some of those things. So as we get into the budget discussions over the next couple of months, you'll be hearing more about that. All right, moving on to the all other revenue. We're slightly below budget on all other revenue, but we have a few bright spots. This graph over here shows you what makes up that category. So a big chunk here is services, and services includes EMS. EMS, as you'll remember, we are outsourcing to a company called Intermedics for our EMS billing. We started that outsourcing in December 2016. And things are going well. We're actually seeing, I was looking at dollars collected year-to-date 17 compared to year-to-date 18, and Intermedics has collected more than $500,000 more than our previous year. So bottom line is really good on the dollars collected. From an accounting standpoint, you don't record this on a cash basis. It gets a little bit more in depth than that. We actually record revenue when the ambulance goes out, and when we bill is when we record the revenue. And then we have to do a lot of adjustments for insurance companies or Medicaid, Medicare that, pay at a different amount, for self-pay customers that end up not paying at all, and we have to charge off. So anyway, what I'm seeing this year is we have more disalloweds. That means that means Medicaid, Medicare is not going to pay for a portion of it. And we have more bad debt than we had at the same time last year. But I think I'm actually looking at this as a fairly positive thing, because last year we were really just in the first few months of working with Intermedics, and we were still getting our processes in place, and especially our charge-off processes in place. And so we had some large year-end adjustments that happened last year. This year we're seeing a more steady pace month by month. So anyway, but that's making it look a little worse than last year when you look at a year-to-date comparison. On the bright side, though, permits and fees are ahead of budget, and recreation revenue is also performing better than budget. One other thing I wanted to mention on the Intermedics side is, you'll see my fourth bullet point down here, the ambulance supplemental payment program. This is something that we were not able to do when we were doing our own EMS billing. But there is a program offered through the state of Texas that offers some partial reimbursement for the costs that we can't make up by accepting Medicare and Medicaid. And it's an application process, and it's pretty in-depth and involved, and it's something that Intermedics does as part of the, of course they charge us for it, but they do as part of the services that they offer to us, and it wasn't something that we had the manpower to do beforehand. We've gotten some preliminary numbers back from Intermedics showing that this won't hit until fiscal year 19, probably October, but we're looking at around a $200,000 reimbursement from the state that we've never received before because of this ambulance supplemental payment program. And of course it is, subject to state funding. They have something called a haircut every year that they take on the program depending on the funds they have available. So, we'll see how it actually ends up. But we're excited about the opportunity for some money that we had not had the ability to apply for previously. All right, moving on. I wanted to show you just quickly these graphs that just kind of give you an idea of how we spend our money. These are very similar to graphs that you may have seen in the budget book, if anyone has read their budget book. So anyway, if you look at expenditures by category, you can see that personnel is by far our largest expenditure. No surprise there, and it's very much in line with what we were budgeting it at. When you look at department spending, no surprise here that public safety is where we spend a large chunk of our money. In fact, almost half, 49.3% of our year-to-date expenditures are for fire, EMS, and police. That's also in line with what we were expecting in our budget book. All right, moving on to the water and sewer fund. I'm going to do the same kind of format, talk about this on a year-to-date basis rather than just a one-month basis. So on a year-to-date basis, we're actually in the red, $140,000. That is not of concern because, as you can imagine, this is also a very seasonal fund, but we get a lot more money in the summertime when people are watering in the water and sewer fund. So it's not uncommon at all for us to be a little bit in the red at this time of the year. Let's see, I'm going to look at these categories here. So same kind of format. We have the revenues on the left and the expenditures on the right. I'm going to start with the water revenues here. Water revenues are holding strong. They're pretty close to what we budgeted, a little bit higher than where we thought we'd be, and also higher than what we saw at this time last year. This very thin yellow line that hopefully you can see here is our reuse revenue, but we wanted to highlight that. So we have almost $26,000 in reuse revenue so far. We were expecting it to be a little bit higher at this time of year, but we were a little bit optimistic about when the reuse pond would be pumping and when the distribution lines would be complete. But luckily, that means that those customers are still using potable water, so their money is in the water revenue category until they get hooked up to reuse. And then on the sewer side is where there's a little bit of concern. Let's see if I can get this mouse going here. All right, so on the sewer side, it looks like we are a little bit lower than our budget, and also even a little bit lower than the same time last year, which is somewhat concerning. Sewer revenue, you may know, is based on, for residential customers, is based on a sewer averaging. So we don't have the ability to meter sewer water. There's no meter on what's going out of your home, only what's coming into your home. So what we do for residential customers, which is common throughout the industry, is we use something called a sewer average, and we look at your consumption during a 3-month period in the winter months, and those should be the months that we see the lowest amount of irrigation. So hopefully those 3 months are the months where you're most likely, flushing or putting down the drain most of the water that's coming into your house. It's not going into your yard so much during those months. So we have a formula, and we look at your actual consumption, and then we have a formula, and starting in April, we change your sewer average for the month. So you might want to look at your bills for the month of April and see if your sewer average went up or down. I'm just getting our preliminary information for the month of April, and from a city standpoint, I'm happy to report that our sewer revenues are up for the month of April, and our sewer average is coming in stronger than what it was previously. So I think that will help us make up some ground, but I should have some better information next month when we have a full month of the new sewer average. Let's see, and then on the all other revenue, which is the top category here, you can see a pretty big difference in where we are actual year-to-date compared to budget and also compared to the prior year. There was an unusual item, well, two unusual items here. The first one that I have noted in one of the bullet points is we have a $415,000 transfer related to that debt refinancing. So y'all probably remember that we did that back in December, and there was a one-time transfer in to our water sewer fund related to that. So it's a little bit of an unusual item that won't, recur next year. This was also interesting. We received a $39,000 rebate from KPUB for previous years' overcharges. They did some audits on several meters and found that in prior years we had been charged too much, and they refunded us $39,000. So that went in as a miscellaneous income. Since it relates to prior years, we couldn't decrease our current year expense. So those are two unusual things that are helping our bottom line this year. Let's see, and on the expenditure side, you can see that we're a little bit higher than budget, and we're also higher than prior year. A couple of things going in to play here are we have some increased transfers related to capital projects. I'm going to detail that on the next page. We've also had several emergency well repairs for our Lois Street well, Harper Road well, and ASR well. that have occurred in the first part of the year. And, you know, it's hard to estimate how those things will occur. So it's a little bit lumpy. So we're hoping that that's a little bit front end loaded on the expense side, and then we won't see some of the expenses that we just had to kind of estimate would occur evenly over the year.
What dollar amount kind of are you talking?
145,000 is that, well, that's the water production department's comparison of last year compared to this year. I don't have the exact number on just the well part of it. That includes a few other things, but anyway, yeah, over $100,000 for those well repairs. And those were all emergency repairs that we had to, you know, get those wells back online as quickly as possible. And we also had $43,000 worth of bond issuance expense related to that refinancing in December. So those are the unusual items this year that that are putting us a little bit over budget, but we're still hopeful that we should be able to meet our budget for the year, because we have those things that that we had kind of just estimated would occur evenly over the year, but they occurred in more lumps at the beginning of the year.
Amy, can I back up just a second? I
Yes,
hate to do this, Chief, I hate to do this to you because you may answer. What was our, I can't remember, what was the term of our contract with Intermedics? How long?
I believe it is 3 years with 2 one-year renewal options.
Okay, initially 3 years. And the disallowing, was that just legislative?
Yes,
issues?
that's if we accept Medicare and Medicaid, we have to sign an agreement saying that we agree to what they pay us. And we are not allowed to bill the customer anything in addition to what the government pays for those customers. So.
And that's nothing new, though.
No,
Right.
and that's, we had the same, yeah, it was the
So I'm
same
trying to
when we
see
were
why
doing.
we were
But
a
it's
little different.
because we have intermedics, we have the capacity to apply for the reimbursement.
We do, yes, we do.
Which
And then
when we were just on our own, we just didn't have the manpower
Right,
to get all
right.
that together.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
And also just on a straight dollars collected basis, we are seeing significantly higher dollars collected. I don't want to get into too much accounting with y'all, but we do have to recognize the revenue differently than we recognize dollars collected.
Okay.
And there's always year-end adjustments related to the collectability of our accounts receivable on the EMS side. But they're doing a better job of recording those things up front, so we
Right.
won't have a large adjustment at the end of the year. But yeah, thanks for your question. All right. Okay, so looking at the same kind of graph, except these graphs have a lot of slices of pie in them. Expenditures by category and by department for the water and sewer fund. You can see that we have a lot of transfers. I didn't want to just put that as one piece of pie. So we have the transfers broken out into the type of transfer. And you can see down below what the budgeted transfers for the year are. Specifically, in comparison to the prior year, we have a $75,000 transfer for the comprehensive plan that we didn't have last year. We have $272,000 for capital projects, which we had a capital projects transfer last year as well. But we went ahead and funded this one completely at the beginning of the year because we had the cash available to move over. And last year we were doing it 1/12 each month. Let's see. So anyway, those are some of the highlights. You may remember the street use fee, which is new in fiscal year 18, and that's 2% of the water and sewer budgeted revenues that is transferred to the general fund to maintain the streets.
Could you send that slide to us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
I would ask for the whole thing,
Okay.
not just
Yep,
a slide.
That's fine.
Yep.
And thank you very much for the transfer breakouts. That's always been a difficult thing to see some big lump of transfer
It
and not
is.
know what
It
they're
is.
doing.
Yeah, and it's a big number,
Yeah.
and for very different reasons.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay, moving on to, I'm going to give you some brief updates on projects. I wanted to highlight the projects that are specifically in the CIP for fiscal year 18, as well as any projects that had activity during the month. So we're looking at general fund projects to start. And you can see that, you know, we're finishing up the last little bits at the sports complex and indoor athletic facility. And then y'all have probably seen this on some of your future agenda items, but I wanted to mention that Kyle has been working to get requests for qualifications for the Aquatic Center and Public Safety Complex projects out. They're open until May 11th, and then they're scheduled to be awarded on May 22nd. So we'll get rolling on some of those projects. On the water and sewer side, obviously you got the update from Stuart. Great news on the reuse pond. We're finishing up there, and we've actually turned the spigot on, and it's being filled as we speak. And then I also wanted to mention that the Texas Water Development Board loan application for Legion Lift that y'all had previously approved was actually officially submitted and accepted by the Water Development Board on April 8th. So we're still in the review stage, but they have confirmed that they've received everything, that our application is complete, and we're moving forward. So good news there.
Very good.
And then the last slide, I just wanted to show some other economic indicators specifically related to permit activity. So this looks strong, especially on the new permits for single-family residential and new commercial. Once again, that dark blue bar is fiscal year 18 compared to fiscal year 17. And especially on the commercial side, we have, quite a bit of projects going on. You can see these, this graph here shows the dollar value of the permit, that reflects the dollar value of the project there. And then down below, underneath here, is the actual number of permits issued. But we see increases on both counts. So, and that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
That's good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that.
I have just a quick comment.
Yes.
Mayor. I'd just like to point out that the reduction in the tax rate of the property tax last year has turned out to be ill-advised. We did that against the advice of the city manager, who has many decades of experience in city finance, at the instigation of a fairly new and inexperienced council member. Just like to point that out. It's not a good idea. We wouldn't be in this shape if we hadn't done that.
I appreciate your input, and property tax revenue definitely is very stable, and that's the one that we're best able to predict because we do get real good information from KERCAT about how much the levy is, and thankfully we're in a community where we have a real stable collection percentage. So our numbers on property tax are much easier to predict for sure, and then sales tax is more volatile. So.
Okay, so can I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
All right, so on the sales tax issue, in the agenda bill you presented that basically if you, you're trying to keep a balanced budget, right? So we're expecting a shortfall on sales tax.
Yes, sir.
And how are you suggesting that we balance that budget?
We've had several discussions about that. We're looking at a couple of different things. So first of all, we are seeing some staffing vacancies, especially in EMS and police. So we will have some salary savings from those vacancies. We also are looking at, we've talked to the departments about, there's multiple departments that will wait till closer to the end of the year to purchase items like tools and equipment or kind of one-time purchase items. We've asked them to hold off on doing that until we know better where we're going to come in for the year and if we're going to have the ability to let them make those purchases or not. And we have some things like money in an abatement program. We may or may not be able to use that depending on where our revenues come in. But we are actively working to make sure that we can end the year in good shape, even if we miss on the sales tax
If you had to guess, how much year-to-date staffing vacancy money have we accumulated?
I think it's 100,000-ish, but I'd have to go back and verify.
So about half of the shortfall is immediately probably covered by that staffing loss, right?
if, yeah, depending on how the rest of it's
Right.
billed, looking at our overtime, you know,
Right.
that we've had to incur because of that. But yes, we're definitely trying to use some of those savings
Okay,
to
and so,
cover some
in
of
the sales
revenue
tax
shortfall.
numbers that, if we were having a shortfall of sales tax, you wouldn't go to the reserves to balance the budget, would you?
I mean, we definitely would try other measures before
First,
going to
right?
that.
So, okay, and so when we did the sales tax adjustment at the budget time, if you recall, it was actually originally proposed at 3.25% projected growth. And even at the city manager's proposed rate, it would have been higher. So the projected sales tax that we're shortfalling has nothing to do with the actual tax rate, does it not?
Well, I think we're talking about two different
We're
things. So
talking
I think we're
about two
talking about
different
sales tax and property
The
tax,
Correct.
so they're
property
two
tax would
different.
have been more, so it wouldn't matter whether the sales tax went down
No.
as much.
No, he's
Let me,
talking about
let me,
sales tax.
so to get to the point though, basically, when we went after the effective tax rate, the way we did it was we grabbed surplus revenue from the prior year to pay off one-time fees, not operational fees, correct?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't want to just speak off the top of my head,
Right, that's
but.
fair enough. But basically, this notion that the effective tax rate has been impacted by this is a disconnect, because in reality, to get that budget balanced, even at the proposed budget time, the sales tax shortfall has nothing to do with the effective tax rate, right?
Well, it certainly is the council's discretion to vote on the tax rate, and that is, that's definitely y'all's job to do that. And then the sales tax isn't something you can vote on, but you did vote on, our assumptions about it, that kind of thing. So
That's what I'm suggesting. So essentially, I mean, I'll ask Mr. McDaniel, when we adjusted the projected sales tax up, it wasn't to cover the effective rate, it was to cover those three items, the life pack and the Kirk County library fee that was lost and the water service fee, was it not?
That's correct.
So it really, we would have seen this shortfall, whether we had the effective tax rate or not, or the proposed tax rate, we still would have been in the same shortfall problem trying to solve it by looking at expenses that we would have had to recoup, correct?
I'm not sure we're prepared to answer that.
Okay,
right now. We'd have to
that's fair enough,
go back
but
and reconstruct.
that's basically the question. That's enough, thanks.
That's
Okay.
a good report.
I'd like to
All right.
say one more thing, Mayor. I think we need to be aware that those vacancies in public safety may very well relate to the non-competitiveness of our pay for fire and police. This is a problem in many smaller cities. Get somebody trained, and that's the big expense of hiring them, getting them all certified and everything. And then another town, a little bit bigger, that pays a little bit better, lures them away. So we need to be thinking about that as we consider next year's tax rate. In all likelihood, we need to re-examine and see whether those pay packages need to be adjusted, or we're going to keep on seeing the attrition of good emergency management people.
Thank you for your input, and those will definitely be the types of things we'll be talking about during our budget workshops this summer.
That's wonderful.
Right.
All right, thank you, Ms. Amy. And number 7 is the city manager's report.
Mayor and Council, I was just going to update you on our work to try to put some information out about the new hands-free ordinance, and Stuart covered that pretty well in his presentation, as well as the questions that you all had about signs. So that's all forthcoming, and we're working hard to make sure that people are aware of what the new rules are.
Any questions? Then we will move to item number 8, which is items for future agenda. Mr. Stoudemire, what would you like for us, if we put this on the agenda to discuss? What is the general topic? What would it be?
It's the archaeological impact and costs associated with 17th Mile proposed road under the Kerrville 2050 development plan.
I think it's really the future thoroughfare plan.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Any other items, number 8 for future agenda?
I got one, Mayor. I'd like to put the sidewalk ordinance and sidewalk master plan on there, and also the sign ordinance. I think that's already on the pending agenda, and we can get to that pretty quick.
If I could comment on that. So they're listed under, at the tail end of your future agenda listing as items that we would take up when we complete the comprehensive plan, because there's a lot of other items that we're gonna have to take into account. And oftentimes when you deal with those ordinances, you start tweaking one piece and it impacts another, and you have other issues that are gonna be coming down the pipeline from Kerrville 2050. So we would prefer, in fact, we're going to be requesting a budget item in next year's budget to begin the code review. So the code review would include things like the zoning code, the subdivision code, the sign code, the sidewalk code, and probably others. And looking at those individually and how they all work together in support of Kerrville 2050. So it's definitely on the radar, and it's something that we know we need to do, but that's our current plan.
Okay, thank you.
Are they dealing with that in the comprehensive plan for a sign ordinance review?
It'll be an action item, and so next budget year, we'll be looking at asking you all to fund that.
I see. Okay, anything else? If not, item number 9 is slated for executive session. I would look for a motion under section 551087. Is that correct, Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Looking for a motion?
Well, I guess I'll make a motion, or
Okay.
somebody did.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session under 551.087.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, we have a second. Motion carries 5-0. So at 7:11, we will dismiss regular session into executive session. You're welcome to stay, or if not, thank you for coming. Okay, let the record show that we are out of executive session at 7:50 and back into regular session. Item number 10 is action on items discussed in executive session. Were there any actions we need to take, council? Let the record also show that there were no actions taken in executive session. So if there is no action on item 10, then we are ready for adjournment at 7:50.20.